Welcome to the #1 show and the source of truth for all things MedTech. Here, we reveal the secrets and stories behind the investments, science, and commercialization of the MedTech industry. Every week, we'll take you on a wild ride with the biggest names in the game, from entrepreneurs and investors who are shaking up the market to healthcare providers who are revolutionizing the way we think and practice medicine. So hold on tight and get ready for a journey like no other. This is the State of MedTech. What's going on, everybody? So welcome to this episode where essentially, as you notice from the eye emoji, these are one of the episodes that I post. I do not actually promote. I usually post it at an off hour or something. And the reason why is that I do this specifically for the true believers, the medical sales and marketing leaders who follow this program trying to go to another level. And so I have a special episode today focused on the levers of building wealth in your career, success, and this idea of leverage. Before we do that, though, I just want to do a quick commercial spot or shout out to the partner that I have, which is Clary. It's an amazing software company. They essentially bolt on to Salesforce and turn it into something that's actually valuable. So they essentially automate a lot of sales activities, allows you to predict revenue way ahead of time. And really, it's the kind of technology that I think sales leaders need to start leveraging. So if you're interested in learning more, even if you're a rep, try and book time with them, learn more about the technology, try and bring it in-house to your organization. I think that's one big thing to get on people's radar, is that if you're able to spearhead the adoption of a new tool like this, and considering that they're in the business of this category of revenue, collaboration, and governance, what a great way to elevate your sales career out of just being a rep, which is to understand how do you drive revenue, how do you manage pipeline, et cetera. So if you're interested in learn more, go to clary.com, CLARI.com, try and book a demo with them, mention the show, or just check the show notes below, click that link, and you'll be able to go to their website and learn more about them. And then lastly, just for this episode, again, I kind of leave these little Easter eggs here. So, I've always pushed hard for you guys to invest in yourself and take your game to the next level. Part of that, and that's going to be kind of a little bit of the topic of this show, is like how do you leverage media, right? And so for many of you that should start on LinkedIn, I have that profile upgrade course that's specific to LinkedIn. But on this episode, you're going to get it for only $47. It's a $300 course. You're going to get it for $47. Go to upgrademylinkedin.com or just click the link in the show notes below. Use the code REDHATGANG. You'll get it for $47. And something I really recommend, because I'm going to be raising the price on it. I still think it's ridiculous how low I set this price. But you can join my live coaching calls every week. Ask me anything you want, whether it's career related. You can see our call library, see past lectures and everything, which is on the checkout page. There's a little checkbox to join the live calls. You get it free for 30 days, and it's only $20 a month. So it's a hell of a deal. So with that said, topic today, leverage. What about it? As I pour this nice cup of coffee for me. And so I'm going to be referencing the work of my good friend Eric Jorgensen, who he compiled all the books or all the tweets and the interviews and everything about Naval Ravikant. So who is Naval Ravikant? Well, Naval Ravikant is probably one of the smartest people living. I'm not joking, but essentially he is an entrepreneur, a philosopher, and investor who pretty much captivated the world with his principles of building wealth and creating long-term happiness. He was the founder of AngelList, and since then has gone on to invest in a variety of different tech startups and everything. I'm not going to get into details about that. You can look him up. But, that is what the topic of today is. And so I'm going to start by a couple of quotes that he says, right? One is, you need to learn how to get rich without luck. And then making money is not a thing that you do. It's a skill you learn, right? And so Naval likes to think that if he lost all his money and you dropped him in a random street in any speaking English country, within like 5 or 10 years, he'd be wealthy again. And it's because it's a skill set. right? That he developed and he believes anybody else can develop. It's not really about hard work. Okay. You can work in a restaurant like 80 hours a week. You're not going to get rich. Getting rich is about knowing what you do and who to do it with and when to do it. Okay. And because it's Sunday, if you're watching this on Spotify, you'll see I'm in my sort of Sunday loungewear. So excuse the coffee drinking. Okay. But yeah, building wealth and leverage is much more about understanding than purely hard work. And yeah, hard work does matter. You can't skip on it, but it has to be directed in the right way. So if you don't know yet what you should work on, the most important thing to figure out is what you should work on, right? You should not grind at a lot of hard work until you figure out what you should be working on, right? And I think that's what a lot of medical salespeople do. And believe it or not, I think I think there's a psychological thesis of mine that like if you're really good at selling into an industry or selling to a customer, you become that customer. That's how physicians are. If you look at surgeons, why is healthcare the way it is? Well, because many times they did not want to focus on the business side of medicine. They just believed in working harder and harder, and they'll get to that at some point. And here we are, lobbyists and lawyers run healthcare, but that's a whole other story. So Naval came up with these principles of leverage and wealth in a tweet storm, right? When he was really, this became a tweet thread, right? Or a tweet storm, but he developed these principles when he was pretty young, like in his teenage years. He's been carrying them around for like 30 years. And over time, the thing he got really good at was looking at businesses and figuring out the maximum point of leverage to actually create wealth and capture some of that created wealth, right? So keep that in mind, right? The thing he got good at was figuring out the point of maximum leverage to actually create wealth and capture some of that created wealth. And this is exactly what his tweet thread is about. I'm going to go through that tweet thread and comment on it. And of course, every one of those tweets that I'm going to read to you or walk you through can be extrapolated into pretty much an hour's worth of conversation. All right. But this tweet thread is a good starting off point. And so if you want to learn more about it, if I remember, I'll put a link below in the show notes. If not, just look up on Google how to get rich without getting lucky. Okay, so here we go. How to get rich without getting lucky. Okay, so I'm going to read you through this and I want to kind of guide you as to how this will apply to you as a medical salesperson. But first, a sip of coffee. All right, so here we go. Seek wealth, not money or status. Wealth is having assets that earn while you sleep. Money is how we transfer time and wealth. Status is your place in the social hierarchy. Understand ethical wealth creation is possible. If you secretly despise wealth, it will elude you. Ignore people playing status games. They gain status by attacking people playing wealth creation games. You're not going to get rich renting out your time. You must own equity, a piece of the business, to gain your financial freedom. You will get rich by giving society what it wants, but does not yet know how to get at scale. Okay. Pick an industry where you can play long-term games with long-term people. The internet has massively broadened the possible space of careers. Most people haven't figured this out yet. Play iterated games. All the returns in life, whether in wealth, relationships, or knowledge, come from compound interest. Okay. Pick business partners with high intelligence, energy, and above all, integrity. Side note, by the way, from yours truly here. That's one of the heuristics that Warren Buffett has, which is to pick business partners with high intelligence, high energy, and high integrity. Okay, back to the tweet thread. Don't partner with cynics and pessimists. Their beliefs are self-fulfilling. Learn to sell, learn to build. So don't partner with cynics and pessimists. Their beliefs are self-fulfilling. Learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable. Arm yourself with specific knowledge, accountability, and leverage. Specific knowledge is knowledge you cannot be trained for. If society can train you, it can train someone else and replace you. Specific knowledge is found by pursuing your genuine curiosity and passion rather than whatever is hot right now. Building specific knowledge will feel like play to you, but will look like work to others. When specific knowledge is taught, it's through apprenticeship, not schools. Specific knowledge is often highly technical or creative. It cannot be outsourced or automated. Embrace accountability and take business risks under your own name. Society will reward you with responsibility, equity, and leverage. As Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I'll move the earth. Fortunes require leverage. Business leverage comes from four specific things: capital, people, and products with no marginal costs of replication, which would be code and media. All right, so just to repeat, business leverage comes from capital, people, code, and media. So capital means money. To raise money, apply your specific knowledge with accountability and show resulting good judgment. Labor means people working for you. It's the oldest and most fought over form of leverage. Labor leverage will impress your parents, but don't waste your life chasing it. Capital and labor are permissioned leverage. I'm going to repeat that. Capital and labor are permissioned leverage. Everyone is chasing capital, but someone has to give it to you. Everyone is trying to lead, but someone has to follow you. Code and media are permissionless leverage. They're the leverage behind I'm going to take a moment here just to get my earplugs because my kid's screaming in the background. So code and media are permissionless leverage. They're the leverage behind the newly rich. You can create software and media that works for you while you sleep. An army of robots is freely available. It's just packed in data centers for heat and space efficiency. Use it. If you can't code, write books and blogs, record videos and podcasts. Side note, what do you guys think I'm doing? Right? By the way, on the code side, I do have a software product, but I didn't code it. I partner with somebody. Leverage is a force multiplier for your judgment. Judgment requires experience, but can be built faster by learning foundational skills. There is no skill called business. Avoid business magazines and business classes. Study microeconomics, game theory, psychology, persuasion, ethics, mathematics, and computers. Reading is faster than listening. Doing is faster than watching. You should be too busy to do coffee while still keeping an uncluttered calendar. Set and enforce an aspirational personal hourly rate. If fixing a problem will save less than your hourly rate, ignore it. If outsourcing a task will cost less than your hourly rate, outsource it. Work as hard as you can, even though who you work with and what you work on are more important than how hard you work. Become the best in the world at what you do. Keep redefining what you do until this is true. There are no get-rich-quick schemes. Those are just someone else getting rich off of you. Apply specific knowledge with leverage, and eventually you'll get what you deserve. When you are finally wealthy, you'll realize it wasn't what you were seeking in the first place, but that is for another day. Summary: productize yourself. So let's take a stop there. That's the end of the tweet storm. Again, if you want to look that up, just look up Naval, how to get rich without being lucky. So his summary says productize yourself. What does that mean? So productize and yourself. Productize yourself. Yourself has uniqueness. Productize has leverage. Yourself has accountability. Productize has specific knowledge. Yourself also has specific knowledge in there. So all these pieces, when you combine them, they combine into those two words. If you're looking toward the long-term goal of getting wealthy and having massive success and leverage, you should ask yourself, is this authentic to me? Is it myself that I am projecting? And then, am I productizing it? Am I scaling it? Am I scaling with labor or with capital or with code or with media? So it's very handy. It's very simple mnemonic, right? and this is hard. This is why, Naval says that it takes decades, right? He's not saying it takes decades to execute, but the better part of a decade, maybe figuring out what you can uniquely provide. Okay. Now, something to kind of dive into is like, what's the difference between wealth and money, right? So money is how we transfer wealth. Okay, money is social credits. It's the ability to have credits and debits of other people's time. If I do my job right, if I create value for society, society says, "Oh, thank you. We owe you something in the future for the work you did in the past. Here's a little IOU. It's called money." Okay, wealth is the thing that you actually want. Wealth is assets that earn while you sleep. Wealth is the factory, the robot, the cranking out of things. Wealth is a computer program that's running at night, serving customers. Wealth is even money in the bank that is being reinvested into other assets, right? Even a house can be a form of wealth because you can rent it out, although that's probably lower productivity use of land than, let's say, a commercial enterprise. So Naval's definition of wealth is much more businesses and assets that can earn while you sleep, right? The thing that you keep in mind is technology democratizes the consumption, but consolidates production. The best person in the world at anything gets to do it for everyone. And this is why society will pay you for creating things it wants. But society doesn't yet know how to create those things, because if it did, they wouldn't need you. They would already have executed it. And almost everything in your house, everything in your workplace, on the street used to be technology at one point. Think about that. Everything in your house, everything in the street, everything you're using was quote unquote technology at one point. There was a time when oil was a technology that made JD Rockefeller rich, right? There was a time when cars were a technology. We don't think of cars as technology, right? So technology is a set of things, as Alan Kay said, that don't quite work yet. And actually, that's not Alan Kay, that's Danny Hillis. Once something works, it's no longer technology, right? Society always wants new things. And if you want to be wealthy, you want to figure out which one of those things you can provide for society that it does not yet know how to get, but it will want and provide, and providing it is natural to you within your skill set, and your capabilities, right? Then you have to go figure out how to scale it, because if you only build one, that's not enough. You got to build thousands and hundreds of thousands, so on and so forth. Steve Jobs and of course his team figured out that society would want smartphones, right? A computer in their pocket at all times. Okay. And so now, how do you find and build specific knowledge, right? Well, sales skills are a form of specific knowledge. And I know that many of you salespeople have been listening so far, and you're like, man, how am I going to do that? I don't know how to code and everything. Sales is a specific type of knowledge, right? There is such a thing as a natural in sales, right? You run into them all the time, like in your space and in venture capital, right? In the medtech world. And when you meet someone who feels like a natural at sales, you just know that they're amazing, right? They're really good at what they do. And that is a form of specific knowledge, right? But obviously, look, they learned it somewhere. Nobody's just born great at selling, right? They definitely did not learn it in a classroom setting. They learned either, in their childhood, in the schoolyard, negotiating with their parents. They probably got mentorship, right? Maybe there's some genetic component in their genes, right? But you can improve sales skills. Like, for example, which I constantly tell many of you to do. If you haven't done it yet, like, I don't know what to tell you. You can read Robert Cialdini's books, Influence and Persuasion, and you can go to a sales training seminar. You can go do door-to-door sales and improve, right? It's very brutal, but it will train you very quickly, and you can definitely improve your sales skills, right? Remember, specific knowledge cannot be taught, but it can be learned, right? And so that leads me into sort of the end of this episode, or close to the end, which is what I want to talk about, right? So the question is, how can early career medical sales reps harness the power of leverage, right? For many of you, you don't have access to capital, right? You don't have access to labor. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a sales rep, right? You cannot code. And that leaves you with what form of leverage. Labor, capital, code, media, right? And so what do you do with media? Well, the first thing is you can build a presence online. Like, you're in the business, if you think about what you do as a medical sales rep, you're in the business of relationship building. You know, remember that before you enter a room, people will likely Google you. They'll look you up. Your online presence is technically a digital handshake, right? Think about the scale I talked about earlier. The digital version of me, specifically across all social media, but especially LinkedIn, is essentially having that digital handshake at scale every day, every evening with people. So before I even, let's say, go outbound for a meeting, the persuasion and influence is already done. So using things like LinkedIn, industry forums, other social media platforms to highlight your knowledge, right? Share relevant content, connect with professionals. That's a form of leverage, right? A robust online presence, by the way, it's not about bragging. It's about showing your dedication, your passion, commitment to your field, your education, your knowledge base, right? When I was younger and I was trying to move to Silicon Valley to, be a marketer, I was a no-name guy in Orlando, Florida, right? Who just spent 3 years at a robotics company. How did I convince a company not only to pay money to move me, but also create a job for me? Right? I work for a robotics company out in Silicon Valley. They had all the best marketers in their backyard. Why would they move me out? It's because I used media to leverage and scale myself, get that attention, persuade, right? The next thing is becoming a source of knowledge, a resource, right? So with that, starting a blog, a YouTube channel, a podcast, or again, what I did and what I recommend you guys do, because the people you're trying to sell to and the people who you're trying to develop your careers with are all on LinkedIn. So that's surgeons and, of course, MedTech VPs and CEOs, right? This is where you can share your insights about selling, show customer success, also cover other different topics, right? And, as Naval actually, quite often says, give away your best knowledge, right? As you build a following, your word starts to spread. And that's what I did very early on when LinkedIn really sucked back in 2014. Like, I was actually writing articles. I wrote articles about psychology, about marketing strategy, right? And those articles went all over the place. Tony Recupero, the president of SI Bone, he's a legend in our field. I never met him until like a few years ago. How did he find out about me? He stumbled across those articles, and then I find out later on as a 28-year-old kid that the president of SI Bone, back then I think he was chief commercial officer, was emailing my articles across the organization, right? And the last thing I want to mention is just embrace this idea of digital networking, right? So not just like getting on LinkedIn and connecting with people, but attend webinars, join conversations. Look, I write this report every month. I'm going to publish the latest one recently about how many physicians are on LinkedIn and using it. They're having deep clinical conversations. The most powerful people in our industry are on LinkedIn posting and having these conversations. You, as a no-name sales rep, can develop a name engaging with the most influential people in our industry because it's right there for you, right? Make those connections, ask thoughtful questions, offer insights, and then as you engage with the content individuals online, you're not just growing your network, you're expanding your potential influence. Think about what's happening. You don't need to produce a single piece of content. You can just literally go and comment on my content and a few other influencers in the industry, and everybody over time is getting used to seeing your face, your name, and that headline, right? Media as a form of leverage is powerful because it can be used with very minimal marginal costs, which is something that Naval emphasizes in his teaching. And once you've created a piece of content, it can be distributed widely again and again and again without much effort or cost. It's kind of do the work once, benefit many times model, right? Just remember, leverage is a tool. It's a tool that, when used well, can amplify your impact, multiply your reach, and even help you shape the narrative of your career. But it requires consistency, it requires authenticity, and it requires value-driven content, right? And so with that being said, think about what I talked about today. What did you think? Comment below. If you're watching this on Spotify, you can actually comment below on this. Hit me up on Instagram on All Hail Medical Sales and let me know your thoughts, right? But think about the points of leverage, right? And again, I would love for you to take advantage of this like dirt cheap offer for my little miniature course just to get started on LinkedIn, join my coaching calls. But you know what? If you don't want to do that, like just take action, right? But again, like, a lot of these things cannot be learned in a classroom. It has to be learned through apprenticeship. This is why I make myself available through those coaching calls. This is why I provide a lot of free content on my Instagram, right? And many of you, or not many of you, there's a couple of you who get bothered by the fact that I sell sometimes. And I take no shame in it, because in order for you to take action on something seriously, there has to be an exchange of value. Where you put your money is where you put value, right? And that's why even the placebo effect is very powerful, because sometimes when you give away free drugs, free pharmaceuticals, right, they're not as effective because they're perceived as lower value because they're free. And so your pathway to entry right now to say like, yeah, you know what, I'm serious about this is a mere $40, So take that jump, take that little mini course, engage with me, right? And go from there, right? And think more about these concepts of leverage. Where can you start creating more leverage? So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great day. Thank you for enjoying another epic episode of the State of MedTech. If you're feeling inspired and love this episode, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you never miss an episode. And be sure to give us 5 stars and write a short review, because that helps more people discover this amazing community of ours. If you're a company who has an executive that you'd like to be on the show, or perhaps you want to sponsor one of the episodes, shoot us an email at hello@khateebandco.com. Take care, and we'll see you next time.